looking at 5 to 10 years from now, where this technology is probably going to, what does it mean for SDI students and graduates looking to enter the drone industry if they want to get to the ag side?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Flight Path SDI's podcast about drones and everything UAS. I'm Christian, your host. I'm joined today with the whole crew. We've got Steve, we got James, we got Don. Everybody say hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
All right, and today the subject at hand is drones in agriculture. So I don't know much about that. It was one of the things that really I had to learn once I started doing the shows, but you can use drones for a lot of stuff. I mean, James, what's drones in agriculture mean?
So drones in agriculture, there's a couple core use cases for them. You can use them in a multiple of creative ways. It's definitely a growing field, pun intended. But let's just say this. We want to talk more about how to use drones for agriculture, how they're used, and some of the other things that you may need to know besides Part 107 in order to fly drones for agricultural uses. So before we get into these specifics, I want to lead in everyone here with the question is, I mentioned there's a couple uses for drones in agriculture. What do you think those uses are by chance?
For the crop dust pilot to sit on top and then Woodstock, is it, or Snoopy?
Well,
I never watched Peanuts.
That wouldn't necessarily be unmanned. You'd still have a man on the aircraft. But hey, that would be kind of fun.
It makes for a cool visual picture.
Yeah, you got to convert one of those Jetson ones that we were talking about on a previous episode and, put crop dusters on there instead. Anyone else?
So when I think about drones in agriculture, I probably think about my experience growing up. So we had a pine tree forest farmland here in Florida, and we had some cattle. So we had a big fence around our property. I'm thinking of it for I want to use it for day-to-day maintenance of my farm. I want to, instead of walking and driving around fence lines, I could use a drone to check the property. Maybe when it comes time to planting trees or checking out areas where I would want to plant trees, it'd be great to, cover a big area, check out places I could drop seeds at maybe, or where would be a good spot to expand to. Sometimes track animals, things like that. But also probably for, like Christian said, crop dusting, maybe some sort of, pest prevention. Can you spray chemicals to protect your crops?
You're on target with that one. And then I especially like the idea of essentially acting almost like, security for your property line, especially if you're a rancher and not just growing crops as well. And then, like you said, just for, property maintenance, there's really good points and ideas. And Don, what about you?
When I think of agriculture, the first thing that pops into mind is doing it cheaper than an airplane, right? Because the crop dusters used to go and fly real low and spray the chemicals, right? And, manned pilots are super expensive per hour. So this is one way to reduce that cost. So I could see the potential applicability for that.
I know, James, you've mentioned in previous podcasts before, where drones excel is where things are tedious or unsafe or expensive. And I know, as a part of a family that had a farm, those are all things we considered, cost, time. What do we do if something is hard to get to? We're going to try and find an easier way to do it.
Correct. Well, yeah, just to you guys' point with the crop dusting, it brings back a memory. I was in Roscoe, Texas once. Out there, they were growing sorghum, it's essentially cattle feed, and was doing some, basic drone work out there. But luckily, and this is before I was off the ground with the aircraft, there was a crop duster that did come by. Now, crop dusters, they're very, let's just say, experienced pilots. They have to be, and they have a lot of risk to encounter because they have to fly low when they're spraying, and they have to consider what roadways they're flying next to. And this one in particular, it was flying close to a roadway which had 20-foot transmission lines. Now, I can tell you what, just from a visual eye, that guy was flying down and spraying crops at about 10 feet above the line. Now that if you want to get what it feels like to be a fighter pilot and, buzz the tower, it might be the closest thing you can get to when you're a civilian pilot. But at the same but we'll come back to that. But it's a really cool thing to see. But here's the thing. When you hire a crop dusting pilot, you're essentially crop dusting an entire field. You're not, hitting bits and pieces here and there, and you're using a lot of chemicals. And the spread on that chemical, could be pretty far, wide, and reaching, which you got to notify individuals that may live close to those fields that this is going on. So, there's a lot of factors that play into it. There's a lot of existing applications. You all made very good points. Now, you may wonder, with those points being made and manned aviation doing that job, why would you think drones are needed in the agricultural field? I mean, if we already have a solution that exists, why do you think they're needed?
First
Well,
one I
I
can
mean-
think of. Sorry,
go ahead.
I don't mean to
No,
step
go
on
ahead,
your
Don.
toes there. But the first one I can think of is cost, right? Drones are a lot cheaper to operate than manned aircraft, and there's no risk to the pilot. So that's number one right there.
Got
Go
it.
ahead, Christian.
Yeah. And then just with what you were saying, I think you were like hinting to it, but you're just spraying a crap ton of chemicals all over, whether things need it or not. With a drone, you can, one, use the drone, go find out which area of crops might need more either stuff to help them grow or stuff to keep bad bugs off of them, and then just go hit those hot spots. So you send another drone out, spray that specific area instead of just overwashing the whole area of crops, whether they need it or not. So
Yeah, I think
and
the
goes to cost.
environmental pressures and rising demand to do more production means that farmers have to do more with less.
And you both hit it right on the marker, center of the marker there, because one of the big problems in agriculture these days is with traditional crop monitoring is, one, the cost, the labor that needs to be done if you want to do more precision spraying instead of spraying an entire field and just saying, hey, let's spray everything just to be safe. That's increased cost, increased labor, increased risk, and the speed at which it can be done. So, and it's great because I like what Steve said with, being able to see specific points of your crops, because that's another thing that drones are used for in agriculture. So we actually got down to the crux of it, where we want to talk about two main use cases for drones in agriculture as a industry application. Now, how does a drone look at your crops, right? What kind of sensors are needed? Don, what kind of sensors are needed when we're talking about crop health?
You need NDVI.
Okay, what does that stand for?
Neutral.
We
I
should
want
let
to say
Christian
neutral
get.
density vegetation index, but I think neutral density is wrong. But I know it's
Yeah.
vegetation index.
Yep, it is natural degradation vegetation index.
Index.
So-
Yep.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yep. Yep. So, the sensor that you use for that is multispectral sensors. So there's obviously a few prosumer drones out there. You guys know about the DJI Matrice 3M, which is the 3 multispectral. That's what the M stands for. And there's a great little tools because you can use them essentially for scanning your crops, and they come at a cheap cost. Like traditionally now, what a lot of farmers still have to do is go around and look manually around their field and inspect, and that does take time. So here's where the speed thing comes into play. Either incorporating a drone service or incorporating the use of one that has a multispectral sensor on board, it can generate what this NDVI is. It's a crop health report, but it's based off of colors. So, and it's pretty simple, believe it or not. Who would guess what the color green means when you're looking at a field?
Green means money.
Go.
Yes, green means money, but green means good, right? What about red?
Bad.
No go.
There you go. And then what about yellow?
Maybe.
Go faster.
Go faster.
Go faster.
Maybe or go faster. I like that. It's because it's on that scale from like green, yellow, red. Red obviously is bad. Green is good. and that yellow is that cautionary area, of course. It's just like what we can relate to a traffic light. But what is it actually looking at? Well, what these things are looking at is actually the reflectivity of sunlight off the vegetation. Like how your crops normally work is off of growth from sunlight absorption, right? Growth, water, sunlight absorption, and the like. If that vegetation isn't getting a lot of sunlight, it's degrading, which is that D of that NDVI, right? That index we were talking about. So when it's getting less light, that means there's something wrong with the health of the crops. And normally that means, okay, what do I do? Is it insects? Is it something else? Is it other chemicals that I got to worry about? Is there something in the air? Is there a lot of dust? Like a dust storm came through and now it's coating my crops and I have to worry about it. Like up here in eastern Pennsylvania, we have corn, lots of corn, and most of it grows pretty well. We don't have to worry about dust or anything else like that, but we do have to worry about insects. So we do have times where we have to spray the pesticide up here. Now, question. For just doing crop health analysis, do you think that we need anything else other than a Part 107 to really do that?
For
No.
crop health analysis,
Yeah,
I'm going to say you only need a Part 107.
that's correct. Yeah, you only need a Part 107. Then I will say this, if you're looking to get started mainly in the agricultural field, like offering a service as a drone operator, it's a really good place to start doing crop health because you can get drones that have multispectral sensors out there that are in the singulars of thousands. Now, I'm not going to say that's cheap, maybe costly for someone else, but as a business perspective, it's a low cost to entry. But let's talk about the other side of this. Let's talk about crop spraying, right? So crop spraying, yeah, we're talking about a Mavic 3M. It's a pretty small drone. How big do you think is a crop spraying drone?
Probably the size of a small Volkswagen Beetle. Like, I don't know. I don't know if you call it small or big.
I mean, is there a small
they're all the same
Volkswagen
size.
Beetle, or like
Is it the size of a John Deere tractor, perhaps? Maybe a ride mower?
Maybe a
Smart
ride
car?
mower, yeah, about that size.
Okay. What
It's the
is it,
size
weight?
of a newborn calf.
There you go. That's pretty. That would be a
55
good
pounds?
55 pounds. Okay, yeah. There are some that are that size. There are some that are bigger. There are some that literally look like someone made their airframe look like a John Deere tractor front. I'm not kidding. Some U.S.
That's
drone
cool.
companies have made that. It's pretty neat. But they got to be heavy lifters. They got to be something that carries a lot of weight, a lot of payload, so they can spray. But do you think that they're just used for spraying the whole field? Do you think they're used for, spraying small portions, the portions that actually need it?
I would just assume small, right?
I think it's a combination of both. Like you can use the drone to spray the whole field. Especially if you have extra batteries, you come back, you swap out batteries, you send it back on its mission, and you keep going. But it's also good for those little small patch areas.
Yeah, I think a drone you can stop and hover, you'd be way more precise than a crop dusted airplane.
Both very good points. I kind of want to build off Don's point a little bit on this as well. Now, you said they can be used for both, doing the whole fields or doing smaller portions. Do you think that there's a limit to like the space, the amount of acreage that you could spray effectively with a drone if you were spraying the whole field instead of spots? Do you think that there's like an upward limit to like a trade-off of time versus cost of what it would be to use a drone instead of a manned aircraft for crop dusting?
Yeah, that's kind of where my mind went because obviously if you drive a small Volkswagen Beetle or a big Suburban, your gas tanks are going to be different sizes. So if you just have a drone with this limited amount of tank size and you have to just keep coming back till your whole field's done, it might make more sense for a general spray that one time or whenever during the season have a full big manned pilot crop dusting session just to save time.
I'm going to say maybe because it might depend on not only how big of the areas you're spraying, but what are you spraying and what chemical are you dropping as well? Maybe those would be more factors.
And then how fast you can lay that chemical down.
And
I
the
like
weather.
this. All of
And
this,
then
yes, and the weather
and then
too. It's a really good point because
and
if the weather's not
if
cooperating,
Jupiter's in rising,
if the stars are not aligned,
yeah,
gentlemen, remember, revert to your farmer's almanac for that kind of stuff. All right,
true.
but all very good points because if you think about it, like imagine you have like let's say like 100 acres of shore-grown crops to spray. Would you and you want to spray all of it? Do you want to use a drone that maybe covers 20 acres every 3 hours, or do you want a fixed wing aircraft that covers all that in about 2 hours with one single run? Right? That's where that kind of consideration comes into play. Now, Now let's flip that around. What if you have, say, a 10-acre couple fields, right? Nothing too big, but it's a decent sized crop and it needs some attention. And you need to spray all that. Well, would you still consider the manned aircraft, or could you do with the uncrewed aircraft that reduces the cost by probably by a half, if not 2/3, of the overall operation? Depending on prices. What would you do then?
And there's so many variables because I think of like my background of being a small family farm, more rural. We might not even have access to hire somebody in a fixed wing aircraft to fly and do this for us. But if I had my own license and my own drone, yeah, okay, it might take me a week, but I'm not relying on somebody else to do it for me, even if they could do it in a day.
That's a really good point because crop dusting, as far as an available service, is not as, how do I say it, popular as it used to be, or not as available as it used to be. So you make a really good point there. It's almost kind of like, are we going to get to a point where it's like an old trade, essentially, or eventually, going out to the point where there's maybe 2 or 3 in the nation that can still do it while the rest is done by UAS operations? Do you think we'll reach that point at sometime? I know it's hard to say. It's like you said, there's a lot of factors going into it, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
To me, it sounds more realistic for a bunch of independent farmers to just slowly add to their, farm equipment, a fleet of drones basically that are maybe specific or general use. And you just add that to, your regular farm duties.
That's a really good point too. It's not just for like doing these services as a business. It's also used just as for your own, like either you do an at-home farm or as a business or a way to, do it as a hobby or just for your family and so forth. It's a way to help, get more yield out of your home farm. That's a really good point to this as well, because most of the time, I'll be honest, I've been thinking of it mostly more on the business perspective side, but there's also the personal perspective side to it too, because one of my family members, he has 7 acres that he has a lot of crops and farm, and essentially they built up a nice garden space and they're growing their own stuff as well. And it grows really well up here. But, imagine it got outside of the point where you needed to monitor it more effectively. And, 1 or 2 people couldn't necessarily do that effectively in a day, especially when you got a family to take care of, full-time jobs, or you're running your own business, all that sort of stuff. It does take some time. So that's a really good point that you make there, Steve. It's a really good fact.
Even for a small farm, if it's a couple 100 acres, 1,000 acres, that's a lot of ground to cover. And if you have a piece of equipment that is multi-purpose, it can improve my yield. It can help me, save time on spraying, but I could also use it for other things. So I can be trained to also use it for inspecting my property, tracking down an animal, all those other things. That makes it make a bit more sense for an ROI perspective.
Certainly. And then you get into another consideration factor and a couple points there too. And I don't mean to go down an even further rabbit hole with this, but it also kind of plays into the spraying. We're talking about spraying, we're talking about inspecting. But what we haven't mentioned yet is that spraying requires more than just the Part 107. Can anyone guess what that is? What else is needed?
Yeah.
We probably don't have to guess because we read the notes, the pre-show notes.
Part 110. No, we know. It's the one.
That's correct. Yes.
I'm going to say it's another set of numbers.
It's Part 137.
Yes, it's another set of numbers. There you go.
Yeah. I also have it on the screen.
Somebody said it. Thank you. That works too. Thanks. But yes, it for so like when we're talking about like for like personal farming or like hobbies or anything like that, or like you said, small farms, it could be very easy to get your Part 107, acquire a drone, and be able to monitor your crop health that way, and do it even on like a weekly or daily basis. Essentially, if you have like a software that's available to you that something that we teach here at SDI in our UAS 205 class, which is Geospatial Intelligence Systems. It teaches students the workflow for going and surveying land with any drone. It doesn't matter if it has an EO sensor, a thermal sensor, a multispectral sensor. They learn the different grid paths that essentially helps capture all those images, and then how to use the software that stitches them all together and how to analyze that stitched together image that gives you essentially a map, a visual map with whatever sensor you use to look at it.
Orthomosaics, right?
Correct. There you go. That's the word. So essentially, they're looking at this giant 2D map. But imagine if, okay, you had this drone, you can send it out, goes and flies, does its thing, automatically uploads it to a cloud when it lands, or you get put it close to Wi-Fi and power it on, and then you have the cloud stitching all this stuff together, or you have your personal computer stitching all this stuff together, and then you can make decisions and you can see on a day-to-day basis your crop health and see if even anything at all is developing, so you can catch it even earlier before you need the spraying. But going back to the spraying, if you were to do this, for your own farm, so to speak, it's more than just the Part 107. And like we were talking about, like the size and scales of these drones, it's not always in the small uncrewed aircraft systems category. And you need that additional Part 137 approval. So let's dive a little bit into that Part 137 approval. Now, Part 137 has been around for a while. It actually is used for manned crop dusting operation, but to put it out there, it's essentially just like the approval for spraying. What was that term that we were looking for, Don? Was it economic chemicals, or
Yeah,
was it something else?
actually,
Economic poisons.
yep. So I have
Economic
the
poisons. There, that's the word for it.
I have Part 137 pulled up as you're speaking, and so it's interesting because it was developed for manned aviation, and then of course it's tailored to UAS. So there are some exemptions that you can apply for in order to operate under Part 137, but it's extensive. You got to go through a process.
So, quick question: So, as far as the spraying operations under Part 137, what process do you got to go to get one?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first thing that you have to determine is whether that operation falls under your Part 137. So I guess you can think of it like if you're a farmer and you have a drone and you're doing inspections on your property, Part 107 is good all day. But the minute you decide, hey, I want to spray something from my drone and control my crop yield, health, whatever it may be, pesticides, as soon as you have that thought in your head, that's when you need your Part 137.
Yeah, and for 137, there's its own subset of rules. We'll put a link in the description for them under the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 14. Chapter 14, Part 137. Oh my gosh, I love all these numbers and rules and regs. See, this is why I can never be a lawyer, guys, because aviation and its acronyms and numbers is enough to baffle even those who are experienced in it. I can only imagine what lawyers have to go through, But in any case, yeah, we'll put that in there for more information. But there's a lot of different factors that go into it, because if you're flying an aircraft that's bigger than 55 pounds, or even when fully loaded with pesticide or any chemicals or poisons, it doesn't fall under Part 107. So you need to consider other factors of it as well. But when you go to apply for this thing, when you go to apply for Part 137, and this is just a general question to the group, what do you guys think you got to prove? What do you guys think you got to show to the Federal Aviation Administration that you can do this kind of operation safely and you have the capability to do it effectively? Well, not just effectively, more safely. That's what the FAA is concerned about.
The first part would be prove you have your 107 license. You need that first before you can even go for the next part.
Good first step.
I imagine there's probably going to be some level of inspections, maybe your equipment or your land, what you're spraying. Do they want to see that, or is that somewhere else?
You're on the marker. You're heading in the right direction.
Tell
Anything
me.
from anyone else before I get into it on my side?
Yeah, I'm going to say one last thing. You're going to have to prove to the FAA that you can fly this machine safely. It's not just a knowledge test like the Part 107. You got to do a practical with the FAA.
That is one of the good core differences between Part 107 and Part 137. As this operation has more risk, you are going to have to practically prove that you can conduct the operation under the and follow the regulations safely. So some other additional information. You guys are hitting the marks. You're really good at this. Now, just to kind of give out a little bit of layout of the process, right? So let's just to be clear, just to reiterate for all our viewers, under Part 137, any operation involving the aerial dispensing of substances such as pesticides, economic poisons, or fertilizers is considered an agricultural aircraft operation. This includes UAS operations, provided they meet criteria outlined in the 137 regulation. Now, to get your 137 approval, you have to apply and complete FAA Form 8710-3 and submit it to grant your exemption number to the FAA. We'll put links about this more in the description. But besides just submitting the application, you have to show a few other things. You have to have an operations manual. So, you know how, and a lot of what we talk about in our operational courses here at SDI, we talk about having a concept of operation. We talk about having a standard operating procedures for flight operations. Well, that's what they mean by an operations manual. You need to have an operations manual detailing not just the drone and its technical capabilities, but your procedures that you carry out for the spraying operation, your safety protocols in case something goes wrong, and how you handle, because spraying is one thing. Well, how do you maintain those pesticides and store those pesticides? Are they, because they're hazardous materials? Do you put them behind lock and key? Are they somewhere on property safe? Is it somewhere that just anyone can access it? And then, of course, if something goes wrong, what's your emergency response plan? How do you manage it? Because if you have a crash with a drone full of chemicals, you got more than just a crash. And if the drone is using batteries, a potential fire on your hands, and now you have chemicals in the mix. So batteries that can't be put out by just water, and now chemicals. So you can see the risks are stacking up pretty heavily.
Do you think is this just
then,
like submitting that information via your application, or are they sending someone out to inspect your property and your storage and your facility?
That
yes,
comes later in the process, but yeah.
Yep. So essentially,
Same
think of
with
it like this.
the practical demonstration. Are you having to go do a practical test with someone observing and watching?
Exactly. So like when you go to take your driver's test at the DOT, in this case, think of it like this. When you go back again and they put you in with an evaluator and you show them that you can parallel park, you can drive down a highway, you can stop at a stop sign, all this stuff. It's the same way, but what they are testing to is not just the overall rules of the road, if we can use that comparison, but your own adherence to the operation manual that you submitted to them as part of your application. So it's just like you said, you're submitting to them your operations manual, so you're submitting to them your application, but then they're going to come out and say, are you actually following this manual? Are you just sending this to us to meet your applicational requirements, and then just, you plan to do whatever you want? And then as Don said,
I was asking, and you may not know this, but if you're running this as a business, not just, hey, I'm a farmer that wants to do this just for my property, but I want to do this for several properties, do you have to reapply every time that you're spraying at a new piece of property or a new farm? Or is it, nope, I have my 137, I can go to different places?
That's a really good question. Once you have your 137, it's essentially across the United States. So once you get it, you can do it as a business for anyone's property. You don't have to get another waiver to do somebody else's property. As long as you're following that operations manual, as long as you're following the Part 137 rules and regulations, your operating limitations, and also another important thing, that you're maintaining and reporting your records of pesticides use, your flight logs, any maintenance records on the drone, any incidents or any deviations that you had to make from your operations manual or standards or regulations. You have to track all that because the FAA is going to come and ask, like, are you maintaining these?
It's
Because
it's
just
funny
like
that they
Part
want to know
107
the
was weird.
pesticides you're using too. And I'm sure you have to go to like
Mm-hmm.
the USDA or whatever agricultural committees and share there as well
There's
what you're
something I want to
spraying.
highlight on that you're talking about, and not only do you have to apply for exemptions, but you also have to get your AAOC. So it's called a Agriculture Aircraft Operator's Certificate, and it basically defines, or it basically means that you know how to use these chemicals properly, right? Because you don't want to
It's like
spray chemicals on somebody's house or something like that. So you need to know what chemicals not to mix, chemicals to mix, that sort of thing.
Okay, then I have a question for
yep.
both you,
It's
James
like
and Don. So the question is, if I'm looking at doing this as a business, what background should I have? Do I need a background in farming? Do I need a background in drones? Do I need a background in chemicals? Do I need all three? Is it possible to do it without having a background in any of those and just get into this as a new field?
Well, you
that's a really
definitely
good
need to
question.
be knowledgeable on all three of those.
I would say if
Go
you
ahead,
plan to
James. I
do
cut
it
you off.
solely by yourself, I would say if you solely plan to do it by yourself with no other individuals in your business that are professionals in any of those three, right? You definitely need to know about all three because it's like working on your own home, right? Like, say, if I want to install a mini split, like an air conditioning system in my own home, and I have never done it before, uh, whoever I need to get a permit for, if I need to get a permit from the town I live in to go and do that, they're going to want to make sure that you know what you're doing. And if you don't, they're going to ding you for it, right? If you try to install on your own and you don't do it properly. So it's think of it the same way with 137. You really either you have to know all these things or under your 137 certificate, because again, that doesn't have to be just for the individual. It can be for the organization. That's the other consideration here. So either you can know it all yourself and learn about it all yourself, and if you got to take a time, or it's good if you already have a background in farming and working with pesticides and so forth, and you want to just come to SDI and learn about drones and have that third piece of the puzzle just plugged in, and then you're whole and ready to go, ready to fly. But if you don't, maybe you've been a farmer before, and you know how to fly drones, but you just don't know about pesticides. Well, it may be good to go out and hire or form a partnership with an individual who is familiar with pesticides, is familiar with chemical spraying, that you can form that business with, and then the business is the holder of the 137 application, not necessarily you are the responsible individual. The business owner is the responsible individual for the certificate, but the certificate, the Part 137 certificate, covers the whole organization. So that means not just you, but as your company grows and you have more operators, more pesticides professionals, whoever you need to bring on to cover that knowledge, you're covered under that certification as long as they're following your operations manual. Does that make sense, or did I go a little too deep there?
No, that totally makes sense.
Okay, cool. No, it was a good question. Real good question. Um, yeah, it definitely depends. With anything we talk about, we're always talking about a multitude of different factors, and there's so much to consider here. I mean, it's also where you can use it applicably, and what kind of drones are out there that we see doing crop spraying. A lot of it is like the DJI Agris series. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those before. Show of hands, who's seen one of those aircraft? All right, cool. Two of us, but they're
Of
pretty
course,
decent
Don's seen
size.
it.
Like
He's
you
seen
said, they're
everything.
like half.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I may have seen one at a show, I just didn't know what it was. So
got
who
it,
knows?
got it. Well, yeah, I mean you've been to AUVSI now, so you and CUAV a few years now, so for those who don't know, it's two of the biggest drone conferences and that go on each year in the United States, and I'm sure you've seen one of them, but like you said, it's probably like, ooh, what's that used for, right? But it's essentially it's pretty tall, it's wide, it can have anywhere from 8 to like 16 motors. Some of them do, so they make a lot of noise. But now that's more of like for the business, like you're talking about, Steve. I don't think And please, anyone correct me here if I'm wrong. I don't think I've seen any like small crop train spraying drones, like something that's small enough for like you could use for your home garden or like a small field or something.
Is that
I
DJI
think at
or do
that
you
rate,
guys? Sorry, Don, go ahead.
I said, I think at that rate, you might just be better off going out and hand spraying it yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Unless you got a drone that can hold the hose and then you can fly your hose and spray. Yeah? Right? Instead, you can just
Hey,
be
hey.
there in your sunroom with your lemonade, just flying this drone around and just watering all your plants, you know?
See, I'm a super lazy person, and my little home garden is about 200 feet away from the home, so that would be more my style. Not gonna lie, be a hose dragger.
Are there any
But
are there any like drone in a box systems out there that people can just go pick up and start using it for this purpose?
for spraying or for inspecting or for
I don't
both?
know if there's,
I'm sure there's probably some for inspecting, but are there any for specifically for spraying that you guys know of? Or are these major purchases one-offs, custom order type things?
So I would say
yeah,
that for the spraying side. Sorry, go ahead, Don.
I was just going to say that usually these industrial agriculture drones that spray chemicals, they're fairly large. They're designed to do a large acreage coverage. So it's a pretty heavy investment. I haven't seen any small ones, but I have seen some pretty big ones that are capable of lifting people off the ground. Um, yeah, so it's a pretty large investment.
Think
But
about
the
the
DJI
price of a
Agris
car.
series is kind of the most popular.
Yes.
Yes, yes. There's some latency happening in this
Yeah, I
video.
think
We're
I
all
think
stepping
James's
on each
internet
other.
is
Sorry, guys.
but
From me.
no, you're good. So let me ask you this. Okay, let's start here. So, say you're a farmer, you run a pretty big farm successfully. You've had all the, traditional things. You want to get into drones. What is a farmer going to need to get to do normal farm stuff from inspection then to spraying and then tracking his cows, like is he going to need 6 drones? Can he buy one Ulta drone that can do it all? Like, what does that look like?
I think his internet went out or something.
All I see is
Yeah,
James smiling.
just a blurry face.
Yeah.
He's,
I
We're
was
gonna
waiting
mark
for him
that.
to
That was such a
chime
great
in.
question too.
he's gone.
Uh, I'll I'll chime in on that one.
Okay.
I think it depends, right? You really have to analyze how much more efficient you can be with a drone to be able to spray your crops. Like, what money savings are you going to get, and really kind of determine what area of your farm you want to inspect or take care of. For example, if you want to do inspections, then you may just want to get like a little small drone that you can count cattle, or you can check your vegetation index, something like that. But if you have a big enough farm and you need to spray pesticides, then maybe it might be worthwhile for you to invest in a big piece of equipment to do that. So I think it all depends, and it's all up to the person. But they
Well,
got to work through those
let me
problems
give you a
together.
scenario then. He's this guy or gal has all the money. He's a successful
Okay.
farmer. What does somebody need to buy? Let's go model. The type of drone, the type of setup, payload.
If you
Can you
want
get
to
into that?
spray, if you want to
Yeah,
spray
if you want to
chemicals,
inspect, and then if you want to spray, if you want to count your sheep.
well, I don't think there's a one size fits all solution for all of those scenarios you listed. I think it's going to be better if you focus on one area that the drone can do well in. For crop spraying, the DJI Agris, I think they're out with like the T50 now. I think they started with like the T20 or 30 and they moved up to the 50. So, bigger payloads and stuff. But if you got a large area, then, those are the top notch drones that are out there spraying. But you wouldn't want to use that for like counting sheep, because that thing is like a small Volkswagen Beetle in the air, right? So you want to use something a little bit smaller that's more efficient and has longer flight time, and then just basically is designed to just inspect. It has a good camera sensor, so you might want to just think about buying another tool for that area of your farm.
So 2 drones. That's all we need.
For
2 drones.
inspection and crop spraying, yeah, 2 drones. I'd say the DJI Agris T. I think they're on the T50 now, T40. Depends on your budget, whatever you want to get.
Like I said, this guy's got money. It doesn't matter.
T50
Let's stop being undependent. Let's say, hey, I need this. You need the T50. You need Terminator TI
Terminator
87.
50. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Then you need the one for inspection. Can the one inspecting crops also count sheep, or do you need a third drone to count your sheep?
If I was going to inspect my sheep or my cattle, and if I was going to, what are you guys laughing at?
Christian is on a fix
Steve's
with
just
these
getting
sheep.
Yeah.
No, I want to know if I'm a new farmer that has a lot of money, or even an old farmer that just has done everything traditionally. What am I looking at? How many drones do I need to buy? I've got all the money.
Probably 2.
2?
I think
okay.
2. Yeah. The
have a
big
question
crop
for you,
spraying
Don.
drone, the T50. Okay.
Looking at 5 to 10 years from now, where this technology is probably going to, what does it mean for SDI students and graduates looking to enter the drone industry? If they want to get to the ag side.
I'd say start now or you're behind the curve. Yeah. It's growing faster than we can stay on top of it. In fact, as of June 6th, the president just released a statement about Part 108 regulations, which we've been waiting on for a long time. But now the industry is moving forward with that. And if you don't get on the hype train soon rather than later, you're going to be behind the curve.
Yep. I think it's a good point, because for businesses, if you're on the drone industry side, here is a farm industry where there's going to be big openings where it matters to these ranchers and farmers of, hey, how can I find ways to reduce the time of managing my crops? How can I save money? And here are also brand new openings and careers that can combine farming and drones together. So I think this is a cool branch for people that are looking at the drone industry that maybe has some, very niche potential to get into it and become an expert in it.
I think for especially crop spraying, like farmers already have enough on their plate, right? They got to manage the farm, manage people. If you want to do crop spraying, it's a lot of effort to understand the system and go through the process and get certified to do it. So I anticipate in the future, if anyone wants to get into crop spraying, you're probably going to be protected for quite a while until that process becomes easier for the farmers to integrate that as part of their tool set. But for now, it's a pretty all-encompassing solution, and you can definitely form a business around that.
I know I joined late in the conversation. Sorry, had a power outage here. So internet, everything just gone. Apologies, I dropped off there for a second, guys. Some people might think I'm
We didn't even miss you.
I kind of figured that was the case. Dangers of dealing with AOL dial-up still, But I'm kidding. But in any case, there's some. I'm going to put some statistics on this for everybody. Think of it like this, and we're talking nationwide, not just here, worldwide, not just here in the U.S. There's been a report of over 400,000 agricultural drones sold for agricultural uses worldwide in 100 different countries that has been recorded and reported. And that's drones that have to do with multispectral central scans, multispectral tongue tire, really it is, and then also crop spraying as well. So that's just from the year 2020 till now. 100,000 in 5 years. That's a 90% increase from any sales ratio in the past of adoption of drones for agricultural uses. Now, here in the United States, at least what's been reported to the USDA, there's been about 12% of large-scale farms across the entire United States that have now incorporated the use of drones for health scans as well as crop spraying as well. So while it may not be a huge spread yet, It just goes to show with those adoption numbers worldwide, as well as the adoptions numbers growing here in the United States, there's room for growth and people to still get into it and take hold of it as a potential business and as a good use and application to increase the yields and increase the outputs of their farms as well.
Oh. One thing that popped up that I really was interested in that you had put in the notes is the future and incorporating AI. Like, how do you see that changing the game for not just the industry, but just like the farmer themselves?
So, how long do we got? Because I can go. I know we don't have much time, but I can go into
let's do
this for a minute.
short answers only. James and
Sorry, short answer.
Let's do the short and sweet, James.
Okay, well, think between AI, beyond visual line of sight, and multi-UAS, right? Take those three, drop them into the agriculture space. Because now instead of having, again, a farmer could have a small army of drones that could be at stations that are automatically refilling the spray for pesticides. They could have, so they could have both kinds of drones. They could have a drone that does multispectral crop health inspections, and then you upload that to a cloud system that analyzes the crop and says, hey, these areas need spray. And then it relays that information to the drone in the box with the pesticide crop spraying. And then it loads the pesticide as much as it needs for spraying, sends that drone out, and then sprays those specific areas without the operator necessarily having to do anything, but they're still in the loop. So AI incorporated into that, along with beyond visual line of sight and multi-UAS, it could be a game changer to where you're really reducing the overall cost, because now, besides yourself being a pilot, you can reduce the cost of the overall operation and make it even smoother as well.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Again, robots taking our jobs.
You know, I don't have an
Don,
argument
what's your
against
2
that
cents on
anymore.
that? Don, what's your 2 cents on that?
Well, AI is going to be something, well, it's already something big. Like, it's being incorporated into drones currently, and in the future, it's only going to get better. I anticipate that some of these drones that are going to be coming out in the next few years are going to be able to do what James said. And we're not that far away from it.
It's coming back to it. It's the matter that, you know, you have AI models that are now fitting into companion computer boards the size of credit cards. They're small AI models. They're not hyper intelligent, but they're enough if you train them on a certain task that it can handle it. So we're already in that stage. There's companies in the United States like ARC Electronics, ARK Electronics, that have already integrated those kind of computers and a flight controller board all into one board that's ready to go for developers and for people to integrate and use as the brain of their drones for companies that are developing them. It's already here. Now it's just a matter of availability and growth. And then regulation.
Yeah, and AI is not going to stop. It's just going to get better and better.
The technology
Well, I
curve
think
just
with
went from this.
And I also think about with AI, the capabilities it has for reading data and like compiling data. Like okay, if my AI drone could notice a trend in what my crops are producing or not producing, or changes in yields, things like that, like that would be really valuable to me as a farmer trying to do a forecast crops. Like, okay, what can I use if my AI and my drone to maximize potential? What am I missing? And maybe that AI could pick up something I'm missing.
You could go from a 70%
Yeah, that's a
yield
very good point.
Yeah, you can go from a 70% yield to a 95% yield pretty quick if it can identify areas like year over year where you're seeing your crop having problems, where it needs more care. And say, is that a soil problem or is that something else that I got to look into and get down to a root cause of what may be causing that 70% yield.
Yeah. I know I've seen at like different farm shows equipment that will monitor your crops, and these are ones that almost look like the watering systems that roll across your farm, but it has cameras on there, and it's almost like able to pinpoint, oh, here's a bad plant, oh, here's a weed, oh, here's these, and it will remove those things for you just by the visual identification of it. And that I know, I remember seeing stuff like that years and years ago.
Wow. No, that is cool. And then you bring it back to mind of like, yeah, there are like the little weed removers like that use lasers. So imagine like an AI ecosystem with ground and aerial autonomous.
Yeah. And I know we used to also use companies that, you would send them soil samples and they would send you back custom made fertilizers for your specific soil.
That's actually pretty cool. How long
Yeah,
did
they
that?
would do
How long did that take
fertilizers
from the time?
and a couple weeks. Just threw some dirt in the area you
Okay.
wanted and send it to them, and they'd analyze it, and they'd either give you back a fertilizer, they give you a report of what minerals were in there, what's lacking. They would even do custom like seed packs for us if you wanted food crops for like deer and things like that. All that was all custom made for you.
Yeah, I did the same thing with colon health. So
They sent a drone up there, huh?
yeah.
No.
Anyway,
I was thinking the same thing. I just didn't say it.
I said it.
all right. So does anybody have anything else before we recap and get out of here?
This is something that is going to grow rapidly over the next few years. As you can see, there's already been a decent amount of rapid adoption in the last 5 years. It's going to expand more. So really, we have courses here at SDI like UAS 205 that teaches you for the mapping and the surveying, and obviously for your Part 107. But get out there, do some research. There's a lot of great resources out there. Check out the Code of Federal Regulations for Part 137 if you're interested. There's others out there that are additional resources to look into to learn more about this. So if you're looking to get into the agricultural space, start studying, start looking into it, and get ahead of the game now while you can.
Yep, I'm just going to piggyback that and say get some knowledge. Like go out there and get smart about what you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, man. If you would ask me years ago, all this technology would have sounded like science fiction, but it's really cool that new drone operators are getting to be the forefront of all this new technology. And I hope that SDI students get to be a part of and operate in real world use cases of this.
And for me, my takeaway, if you're of a certain age, colon health, very important. So, seek the help that you need, whether it be whatever. Anyway, if you want to learn more about our programs here at Sonoran Desert Institute, go to our website, sdi.edu. Hit request information, talk to an admissions rep, go through the course descriptions, go through all the information. If you have questions, put them in the comments. But if you want to know more about the ag stuff, put questions in the comments, or if you have your own experiences, share them as well. We'd love to talk about it further. So, but for me, James, Don, Steve, that's been the Flight Path. Everybody wave bye.
Bye.
Bye.